can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Niall. Delighted as always to be joined by Owen, and we're here in final prediction mode for this weekend's world title fight. WBA featherweight title on the line as England's Nick Ball takes on Sam Goodman of Australia in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, part of that big card, headlined by Moses Itauma, Dillian White. Also intriguing clashes on it like Philip Hergovich, David Adelaide, and yeah, this one at 126 pounds who a lot of people think is the best featherweight in the world, Nick Ball, but he has an interesting challenge ahead of him here. Owen, we were just kind of briefly chatting there off camera. It was unexpected. It was kind of like Hergovich Adelaide. Nobody really saw this coming, but yeah, let us know what you think. What's your final prediction for this one, Nick Ball and Sam Goodman this Saturday?
I think I'll be back in Nick Ball on points. It's a really good fight. I know Sam Goodman obviously meant to have the Inoue fight, I believe, twice and pulled out. I know one was from a cut, and it was quite a pretty cut as well. To be honest, it was sure it's left a lovely scar. But when you pull out twice of fights like that, I almost thought Sam Goodman might be slightly left behind. But this is a good fight for him. It's a good test because we know Nick Ball can operate at the highest level. Obviously he's got that one draw on his record, which is half a blemish, as I personally thought he won that fight, but that's boxing politics, and we could be here all day discussing that. So I think it's not an acid test for Sam Goodman. I think this is the big test to see where he's at. If he comes through this with flying colours, he's making a huge statement in the 126-pound division. We could see a certain someone move up. So if it's a really difficult one to look at from Sam Goodman's perspective, but yeah, I just think Nick Ball will be a bit more experienced at the highest level and see the job done.
Yeah, I think you've hit it spot on there. I think this is an interesting test. I like this fight, to be honest with you. I think it's, Nick Ball, you mentioned that run he went on. I think this is his hardest test since that Ray Ford fight, to be honest with you. He's had a couple of defenses against Ronnie Rios and TJ Dehenny, got the job done. It was an interesting one against Dehenny with that kick incident. He might have not, he might have been disqualified in that one, to be honest with you. But yeah, he got the job done. And Sam Goodman, yeah, tidy boxer, very good boxer, good fighter. Said the anyway fights didn't materialize, and you've hit the nail on the head. I thought he was going to get a bit lost in the shuffle, but I'm glad he's getting a big fight. In place of that anyway fight, he's still challenging for a world title. But yeah, in my opinion, Nick Ball too too strong. I think too kind of gritty and too strong for Sam Goodman here. So I'm going exactly the same. I'm going Nick Ball points here. I think Sam Goodman will have success early. I think he
Mm.
could outbox Nick Ball here early on, but I just think Nick Ball too strong, too dominating, and yeah, proving that. Sam Goodman, of course, a super bantamweight coming up as well against a strong featherweight, a bullishly strong featherweight. So yeah, it's a very intriguing fight. I'm looking forward to seeing how Nick Ball deals with it. But yeah, got Nick Ball, both of us on points, and Nick Ball's a fascinating one. I just want to kind of chat to you a bit before we wrap up here. First of all, I'm going to ask you kind of, do you think that he's the best featherweight in the world at the minute? And how would you kind of see him getting on against the other champions? Would he unify in your opinion?
I think Nick Ball can definitely unify. He probably already should be the unified champion of the world, in my opinion. Considering there's about a 37-inch height difference in that fight as well, um, which is a bit mental. But there's only one fight I want to see for Nick Ball. I think he probably is arguably the best in the division. He could defo unify. Undisputed is always another question, but it's got to be a new way at Anfield, regardless of bouts and unified, undisputed status. I think Nick Ball himself and his team have sort of said, legacy defining fights. He's always going to be in the mix for bouts at 126, but Naira Inoue and the likes of Naira Nue don't come around very often. So you've got to take your chance whilst it's there. He's got a huge fan base as well in Nue. Even now, especially with his, his fan friendly style and fighting on Christmas Eve and Tuesday afternoons. He's even outside of his native Japan. He's a superstar. So that's the only fight I want to see. Nick Ball, yeah, I would say he's the best in the division. 100% unifies, but for me, it's a new way at Anfield. That's what I want to see for Nick Ball.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I think he is the best. There's fascinating fights for him at featherweight. Espinosa, Fulton, Leo. I think he is good enough to beat them all, and I rate the other champions highly. I think Espinosa's a problem. Fulton, I think stylistically against Ball would be a fascinating fight, but yeah, Nick Ball for me there. But yeah, before we kind of finally put a bow on this, you've led beautifully into it. There's been a lot of talk. Nick Ball, no, anyway, Anfield if it happens. I just want to get your thoughts. A lot of people think Nick Ball could do this against Noy anyway. Do you think he could get it done?
It's the problem is, well, it's not a problem, but I think the thing is, it's the questions of if Inoue steps up again, is it one step too far? Will his power translate? Because Nick Ball is a different sort of problem in terms of constant pressure, constant front foot. We've seen him always like he stands up in the corner in between rounds. He'll sit down after the fight type of thing. So that's a completely different prospect and proposition. Especially when you're moving up and you've been down at sort of around the flyweights and going all the way up to feathers. So it's a big jump. I know he's done it over a period. If anyway goes up, it will have been done over quite a large period of time. But still, it's if the power doesn't translate, it becomes an interesting fight. If the power translates, I don't think anyone beats Inoue, so I'd back him to beat Nick Ball. But it's not a walkover by any stretch of the imagination. I think, especially if it was at Anfield, Nick Ball's going to stick it all over Inoue. He's going to meet him in the centre of the ring. He's going to try and claim the centre, step on Inoue's toes, and let him know he has to come and beat Nick Ball. It's not going to be an easy night for him. So I would back Inoue, but that could probably very quickly change in play, dependent on the power.
Yeah, you've made great points. Like it's a fight that on paper I'd confidently back anyway. No shame on Nick Ball. But those intangibles that you mentioned, would it be a step too far? And would the power translate? And how would anyway deal with the strength and the aggression of Nick Ball? But yeah, if that power doesn't translate and it is a jump too far, it suddenly becomes very interesting. So they are the kind of variables that I would love to see. As I say, on paper, it's anyway for me, but fights aren't fought on paper, as we know. So it'll be very interesting. And yeah, Anfield would be rocking for that one if it happened, and that is the fight for me, to be honest with you, to welcome Inoue to featherweight. But yeah, Nick Ball still has a job to do this Saturday night before we can even talk about it anyway. Sam Goodman stands in his way in defence of Ball's WBA featherweight title. Of course, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, part of a stacked card. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with our final predictions of a Nick Ball points win, or can Sam Goodman, let remind the world of why he wanted that anyway fight so badly and thought he could have kind of done a job there. So yeah, let us know what you think. Get involved down below in the comments, and as always, don't forget, drop a like on this video first of all, subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing, and follow us on all social media. Owen, it was a pleasure. Take care.
Pleasure as always, mate.